This right here is an Acura NSX, known outside North America as the Honda NSX. It's in 1/43 scale and made by DeAgostini. This model is much cheaper than the red and black NSX sold by IXO Premium Collection, which comes with a fancy base with like a golden photo-etched nameplate and has a few extra details compared to this one I will go over during my review, but I think that model is based on the same casting as this one. So I settled for this one instead, because this cost me just €5. Now these DeAgostini versions suffer from frequent paint issues and overall worse quality control, but if you do come across one in a relatively good condition, it can give the more expensive IXO a run for its money. Especially because I kind of like this black and white color scheme, which is based on that of the Japanese police. So let's talk about the Honda NSX. The NSX stands for New Sports Car Experimental, emphasis on X, and this car was an icon of the 1990s, because with it, Honda, who previously had no track record of supercars, wanted to challenge the European dominance of the supercar market. At the time, cars were built out of steel, and the first thing Honda decided to do was build the NSX out of aluminum instead, saving some 200 kilos in the process. The NSX was designed to be more affordable than the Ferrari 348, combining the looks and performance of Italian supercars with the easy maintenance of a Honda. But it has aged so well that it's actually more expensive now. The NSX was made for 15 years, from 1990 to 2005, but in 2001 it received a facelift and these pop-up headlamps were replaced with some rather hideous-looking fixed ones. But the original styling of this car, with the pop-up headlamps and everything, which kind of reminds me of the Ferrari F40, goes back to a collab with Pininfarina during the 1980s. Gordon Murray was a big fan of this car and wanted Honda to put a more powerful engine in it, but Honda declined, which is why he then went on to develop his own legendary car of the 90s, the McLaren F1. So taking a look at the front of the 1/43 scale Honda NSX by DeAgostini, you can see that the front has, of course, these iconic pop-up headlights, which naturally don't open on this 1/43 scale model, but the grooves and all that are done pretty nicely, and in the front, like in the middle, we have a badge. Now, this is not the Honda badge, instead it's actually the seal of the Japanese police force. So that's kind of interesting. Underneath, we have a Japanese license plate. It says 41-69. Not sure if that has any meaning. And flanking it are two indicators, and below them, two fog lamps, and all of these are separate plastic pieces. So one of the differences between this DeAgostini version and the more expensive IXO one is that the indicators are cheap plastic pieces tacked onto the car body here, but on the IXO they're more recessed and more professionally done. So here's a look at the side of the NSX, and you can kind of see how long it is. We've also got the kanji letters that say police, orange indicator in front of it, nicely carved gas cap, and of course the two-tone color scheme, which I really like. One frequent problem on these DeAgostini Honda NSX models, though, is that the shade of white on the car body does not match with the shade of white on the canopy. And that's because the entire canopy, including the A and B pillars and roof, is plastic, while the body is metal. However, what I like is that if we check out the wheels, you can see that they actually have Honda logos engraved into the rims and surrounded by 5 holes for the lug nuts. You will also notice that the car not only has silver brake discs behind the rim, but also brake calipers, which stay stationary as I move the wheels. Now let's talk about the rear wing. You can see that it is very elegantly designed and that it sort of hugs the car body. However, on my particular model, I've had some pretty bad paint rash, as you can see right there, paint bubbling. So I was about to send this model back, but then I realized I didn't really pay much for it to begin with. And from a distance, you can't really tell. What I also like is that behind the rear canopy, you can see that even on this DeAgostini model, they were faithful enough to replicate the sort of grooves that exist here, which are either engine vents or maybe something for like rainwater to run down, I don't know. They say that the cabin of the Honda NSX was inspired by the cockpit of the F-16 fighter jet. And when viewing the car from this angle, you can kind of begin to see why there's this resemblance. It's definitely a car with a good all-around visibility compared to, say, the cramped Lamborghinis at the time, which honestly haven't improved to this day in the visibility department. And now let's check out the back of the 143 scale Honda NSX by DeAgostini. And you can see that the back is actually better than you would expect from a €5 model. I mean, it's got the full taillight and everything. However, you can see that the taillights do have black pegs in them, and aside from the singular light bar that's made out of red plastic, they really don't have much details, apart from the two silver sort of paints on top of it. Now in the middle we have the Honda logo. Unfortunately, it's kind of a bit off-center compared to the peg behind it, I just noticed. The rear spoiler also has a red brake light integrated into it. We get the antenna, which on some models is bent, but at least here it's fine. And then of course we have the rear license plate. Now overall this tail end looks rather good, until you see the rear end of the IXO, which looks way better, because it has a much more detailed taillight assembly. What I like about this cheaper one, though, is that it has a faithfully shaped exhaust, because the exhaust headers are shaped accurately like the real NSX's exhausts. It's oval, but with the actual exhaust inside being circular and flanked by two miniature grills, which of course you can't see here on this 143 model. Unfortunately, my model arrived with just one exhaust. The other had broken off, and it didn't fall out when I opened the blister packaging. Or maybe it did and I didn't hear it fall. So that kind of sucks. But I mean, I only paid €5 for this 143 model. So I'm not going to write to the seller and ask for, what, €1 back? Because that would be kind of silly. Let's check out the engine. Now, this is a very basic looking engine, but I did add some extra details to it in the form of the silver stripes on the valve cover. It's supposed to be a 3-liter V6 doing about 270 horsepower and 0 to 100 kph acceleration in about 6 seconds. And now checking out the light bar, you can see that it doesn't really have a lot of detail to it. I mean, it's pretty simple. And like both are red. I'm not sure if it's like that on the real Japanese car. And also what I don't like is that like over here you can see that it's actually not glued properly. It's supposed to be like that. But still, I mean, it doesn't really become obvious. So as we take a look at the car's interior, you can see that this is a right-hand drive car, and you can see that the steering wheel is modeled pretty well, like a little recess in the middle for, I think, the Honda logo. Then of course we have the stick shift, which I think is a 5-speed manual, and the e-brake, or the handbrake. And then of course we have the center console, which I'll show you from the other side in a second. Take a look at the doors. They don't have much detail on the inside. The seats, kind of hard to see, but they're there. Don't have much detail to them either. So now checking out the passenger side of this right-hand drive car. Maybe there's like a better look at the center console. Got 2 buttons and nothing else really. So yeah. Checking out the bottom real quick. It says Honda NSX 1990. If I can focus this. No, doesn't want to focus. Yes, there you go. 143. And we've got a little bit of detail for the muffler. Here you can see the broken off exhaust, which kind of sucks. But I mean, it leads nowhere. So I hope you guys liked my review of the 143 Honda NSX from the 90s. It's definitely an interesting car that I wanted to add to my collection. Not really sure if this model is really a worthy representative of it though, or whether you should really pay more for the XO version. But I definitely recommend getting this car into your collection because it's too good to pass up. But perhaps DeAgostini is not the one you should aim for, unless you like the police livery. Take care, this is Imperial Diecast, signing out.